Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
All right. Thank you for joining us again on the Daily Palace podcast, brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. Wale Bakar is my name. Great to be on the pod tonight as we discuss a host of things concerning Crystal Palace again. Joining me tonight is Alex Wade. I haven't been on the pod with Alex in a while. How you doing, pal?
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks, Wale. It's a pleasure to be with you again, as usual. But yeah, it has been a while. I can't remember the last time. I said to Joe last week when I joined him on a pod, I don't think Palace had won a game the last time me and him were on. But I'm not sure that's the case with yourself. I think we've been on one since we've won a couple of games. So.
Well, to be honest, there's been I think it's been 3 wins in the league and 2 wins in the League Cup. So hasn't been a lot of wins, to be honest, to talk about this season. Well, thankfully, the game against Brighton turned out to be a 3-pointer for Palace. A lot of Palace fans been basking in the euphoria of that result. A lot of talks about what it means for Palace and what Olivier Glasner's side can take from that result moving forward. But the lineup today, we will take a look at some of Glasner's tactics in that game against Brighton, particularly the forward line. Scoring goals have been an issue this season, but 3 goals against Brighton, I've been seeing a couple of people saying maybe there's a lot of lesson to learn from that result against Brighton. We will, of course, also talk about the possible effect of what we've seen as a solid back line for Palace, the same individuals in the back three, and looks like Palace are reaping the rewards of that one. And then we will get to look ahead of the game against Arsenal. 2 games actually against Arsenal coming up, one in the League Cup and then the Premier League. So that's the lineup tonight. But let's get into it, Alex, and start off with the result against Brighton over the weekend. I know you probably know already, but in case you missed it, 3-1 was how things ended at the Amex. Ismaila Sarr got 2 goals. Trevor Chalobah got another goal. Brighton did get a consolation goal towards the end. It was an unfortunate McGay own goal that made sure the game ended 3-1. But when you look at the front line for Palace, it started with Eze, Ismaila Sarr behind Jean-Philippe Mateta. On the 60th minute mark, Eddie Nketiah came on to replace Mateta. Eze, of course, had to go out in the game as well. But when I've been seeing so many Palace fans, talking about how, the fact that Palace got 3 goals against Brighton and could have gotten more is of some significance. A lot of fans looking at it and are saying maybe, just maybe, Glasner's forward line is beginning to show its promise.
Yes, it's quite interesting because I wasn't able to watch the match, unfortunately, which is like a cardinal sin as a Palace fan as we're playing Brighton. But I looked when I did manage to catch up with the scores. We were 2-0 up, and that was like after 32 minutes or 35 minutes. I looked and I was like, wow, this does not happen often. So you're right. I think Glasner did find something that clicked. But watching the game back, a couple of things that I found quite interesting was we were much more direct in the Brighton game than we usually are. A lot of long balls from Henderson in particular going up to Mateta, and he was sort of battling. He sort of pinned Van Hecke, which I thought was really interesting because he's obviously a great defender and a great ball player. But Mateta just sort of man-marked him almost from attack, and it was quite interesting to see that. But I think with someone like Sarr, his pace is a real asset, and playing the more direct approach is the way you can get the best out of him. I think he's not really a Eze style, slow the play down and look for a pass or look for a shot kind of player. He's very much get in behind and he'll race onto it kind of thing, which we kind of got a bit of joy out of. I think his goal against Aston Villa was a perfect example of that, really. He got in, beat the defence and was in one-on-one. Then he put it away. I mean, him in particular as well has missed loads of chances this season, like good chances. So it was good to see him get on the score sheet a couple of times. And his header for the second one was excellent. Really good poachers kind of snuck in behind and then headed it in. Really good commitment to get on the end of that, which is sometimes when you're not scoring, they're not going in. He might have missed it or something like that, but it's a good sign of his confidence that it's coming good. So yeah, that direct approach, I think, I'm not sure if we'll see that against Arsenal, especially if they play tomorrow. They're two towering defenders, centre backs. But yeah, it's good to see us mixing things up a bit. And I think the other thing that we're doing really well from is set pieces at the moment. I think that's Lacroix against Man City and Chalobah obviously against Brighton. That's 2-2 from set pieces. I think, and you've got Gehi in there and Mateta. We've got some real physical players who I think can cause problems. So we might be watching Arsenal tomorrow on the old set pieces and see if we can learn a couple of things from them who have been banging them in recently. But yeah, it's good to see us scoring from different positions because, like you said, we did struggle earlier in the season for goals. And I think we've scored in 5 consecutive games now, which is positive. And, I think there was a period where we hadn't scored in the first half of games, or we scored 1 in the first 8 or something. And it's like this more front-footed approach is really good for the fans. And I think it just gives us a lift and, we get the hope that we're going to go on and win and score more goals. So hopefully we can keep it going. I think Glasner is very adaptable though, and he will find new ways to sort of challenge the opposition and try and find their weaknesses, which I think he's done really well in the last couple of games.
You make a very interesting point. Talking about the directness of play earlier on in the game against Brighton. That, of course, helped by the fact that Jean-Philippe Mateta was trusted to win aerial duels. But there was somewhat of a change of shape, later on in the game when Eddie Nketiah came on. Of course, that was helped by the fact that Brighton were trying to get themselves back in the game, and that left them open to to counter attacks, and Nketiah's pace and Ismaila Sarr's pace did hurt them a bit. But Joe was asking me yesterday about Eddie Nketiah and Jean-Philippe Mateta and who Palace should be looking at as regards leading the line. And I did say that if there was one thing we saw in that game against Brighton was Nketiah's evident lack of confidence at the moment. That chance when it was open through on goal and just couldn't bury it. It's just what you get from a player lacking in confidence. Yes, you could argue a goal or two in a couple of games would maybe put him back in the place that he wants, but I'm glad I can ask the question now and not have to be the one answering it. When you look at Eddie Nketiah, do you think is done enough to maybe usurp Jean-Philippe Mateta as the man leading the line for Palace, or would you rather still have Jean-Philippe, leading the line, and it was Eze and Sarr the other game. We don't know about Eze's availability for the Arsenal game, but would you have Mateta and then 2 guys behind him?
Yeah, I would. I think Mateta's shown that he's, not just a goal scorer. He does do the physical side of the game really well. And when you're playing a Brighton, a Man City, and Arsenal who just like to dominate the ball, he's a really good outlet to have, I think. And Nketiah doesn't really offer that. He's a different kind of player, more with it at his feet, and likes to run at players, and sort of maybe similar to Sarr, getting behind, and a bit of a poacher. But yeah, I think Mateta offers so much, and the last couple of months where we've been going through a patchy period, he's stepped up as one of the main players who's helped us turn it around, not just through scoring, a couple of goals, but also, just being a menace, really, which is what he does best. And I think when you've got a player like Sarr in particular, who's now hopefully coming into a bit of form, they can link up really well, I think. And then you've obviously got Eze to provide a bit of creativity as well. So I think that front three at the moment is what Glasner will continue to go with. And Nketiah, unfortunately, will be on the sidelines until Glasner sees a reason to bring him in. But I can't see that. Even before his injury, he wasn't at his best, I don't think, because he hadn't played loads of competitive football. But I think we'll stick with him, and we obviously, throughout the Christmas period, will need rotation because of the fixtures. So he will get a chance. Yeah, honestly, I love him. So I hope he does. I hope he does better over the Christmas period or when he gets his chance next.
Well, the good thing for Nketiah is not one to shy away from working for the team. Is always applying himself, and I know a lot of people would look at him and say all he needs to do is keep putting in the work, and the opportunities will come eventually. And I did say while I was talking to Joe about him that. It wasn't so easy, coming into the team at a time when confidence wasn't so high for the entire squad and results were not going the way of the team. So maybe that might have had a knock-on effect on his confidence as well. But there's a fast and a little run of games to come, and so hopefully I will see how it goes. Just like you said, we will take a pause and take a message from Zencastr very quickly, and when we return, we will get to talk more about the Palace victory against Brighton at the Amex in the last EPL match day. Here at Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. It's a Daily Palace podcast brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. Remember, the official GSPN is how you link up with the brother network on all social media platforms at GSPN Palace. That's how you get to talk to us across social media platforms, and we'll be glad to hear from you as always. Alex, let's get on with some of the things from the game against Brighton. We've said a lot about the attack. Let's talk the defense now. I was reading the comments by former Liverpool defender Stephen Warnock, who was talking about the fact that Palace have featured the same defensive lineup in 10 of their last 11 games, been something that the team is reaping the rewards of. I don't know. I don't know what you think about that, but there's been goals conceded still, in this last couple of games, but it does seem like the confidence in the defense is growing. There were some question marks about Shaloba on the right side of that defensive trio, but he looks like he's coming into his own. He's getting back to that level of player that we knew when he got into the first team at Chelsea, and it just looks like his confidence can only keep growing. And good for him. He got a goal against Brighton. I think that was the second goal in the league, and it just looks like the defensive trio as a unit looks like they keep growing in confidence, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. They've looked so much better compared to that first 5 or 6 games of the season where you're just making so many mistakes against like Brentford, West Ham. They spring to mind. Ipswich, Leicester at home. We just giving silly goals away. I think part of that is probably Lacroix is, getting used to a new league, and he's sort of settled in really well now. And he's perhaps the most pivotal defender now alongside Gehi, who's just marshalling that back line. And that seemed to work really well. But again, just watching the highlights of the game on Sunday, just like they looked so like they knew the spacing so well, and like they just communicated perfectly, and they held quite a high line, which is dangerous against Brighton with their attacking quality. But they held that high line. They knew when to drop. They knew when Van Hecke was going to play a long ball forward, and just saw it out easy, especially in the first half. Looked really good. And I think that only comes by playing together as a defence. Even at the top teams, the defence it takes time to build, doesn't it? And to get that familiarity, especially with 3 at the back rather than a 2. And you just see it now. They look confident. They look like they know each other a bit more. It's all sort of clicking into place. But I would also like to add that like Dean Henderson has come into form massively in the last few games as well. Some of those saves against Brighton, the one from Enciso and Lewis Dunk's header, just unbelievable stuff, really. Like it shows that he's a man playing with confidence. And I think the back three will feed off of that as well. They're like, okay, we can like get close, obviously, but if they shoot from 20 yards, we've got a man who's in goal and who's going to try and like keep it out at the moment. So I think that confidence is growing as a unit. And another player as well is Mitchel, who sort of, is a bit of an unsung hero in his defensive work. I think he gets back into the when it's the back five and covers so well, and he's just, you know what, man, I'm going to say it now. I think he might get an England call up in March if he carries on playing the way he has. He goes under the radar. He does his work. He got an assist on Sunday. He's learning that role as a wing back, but when he does his defensive stuff, he never puts a foot wrong. And I think he's a really good player. But yeah, I like it. I like how it's shaping up. And yeah, hopefully we'll keep a few more clean sheets because we haven't had too many this season. But fingers crossed,
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Mitchel because it is one that has improved a lot in the last couple of games. It didn't have a very great start to the season, but you could say that about the rest of the team as well. And it's interesting you talk about an England call up, and it's a very great time anyway because Thomas Tuchel coming in. He'll be looking at all the options. He was suggesting the other day that it's somewhat a fresh start for the English national team and the pool of players that they've got, and maybe just maybe. It will, get a shout if he maintains this form. But just before we, stop talking about the defensive unit, yes, the confidence is growing. You rightly mentioned the fact that there hasn't been a lot of clean sheets. It's been 10 goals thereabout conceded in the last 7 games. 2 against Fulham. There was a 2-2 draw against Leicester. Was it? There's been so many goals conceded, and some of them very avoidable errors, so to speak. And sometimes I don't want to be the one to downplay the praise that players are getting, but I just look at it and I just wonder whether just maybe Palace are not at that level yet. For example, at the defensive level that the team were last season, for example.
Yeah, I think like I said, it takes time with like 3 new defenders coming in and playing together. But also like there's like those errors where they're just not as frequent anymore, and they still happen. Like Gehi's own goal, whilst unfortunate, and the one against Newcastle, whilst unfortunate, they still happen. And if we weren't scoring goals, we'd be having the same conversation we were at the start of the season about how do we stop these errors? Like they're costing us points, but the fact that we're scoring goals and the balance looks a lot better just sort of, masks these errors a little bit. But I think as we grow through the season, we do need to shore up a little bit in those areas. I'm not sure how many clean sheets we've kept. I think it might even be 2 this whole season, which, if you're trying to build and you're trying to climb up the table, you do need a solid defence. But yeah, I just hope it does continue to click and we don't get any major injuries. Hopefully in January we can bring in a bit of cover as well, just to add a bit more quality. That would be really good. But on the whole, it is a massive improvement from the start of the season, which is the kind of positive way to look at it, I suppose.
Oh yeah, I think I was muted for a moment there. Anyway, I was just saying that you were quite close. There's been 3 clean sheets, for Palace this season. There was the one against Ipswich just recently, then the clean sheet against Tottenham, and then the 0-0 draw against United earlier in the season. And that's all the clean sheets in the league so far. Anyway, we'll take a pause and return to talk about the quick fire games against Arsenal coming up for Palace. One in the League Cup on Wednesday, and then there is the Premier League game against Arsenal at the weekend. But we'll take a very quick message just before we continue. This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network, every club, every day. Still the Daily Palace podcast brought to you by GSPN. Wale and Alex with you on the pod today. And we'll move on from the Brighton game now, Alex, and go on to talk about the quickfire games against Arsenal. The next game for Palace is in the Carabao Cup against Arsenal. That is at the Emirates. Then there is the other game. It's not the other leg anyway, but the other game during the weekend at the Selhurst. And I just wonder whether, the quick run of games coming up with Christmas and all, and if there's the FA Cup starting in January as well, if I don't know, Palace have pulled off some strange or unexpected results in the League Cup, especially the last round against Aston Villa. Where a lot of people expected that would be the end of the road as far as the cup run for Villa is concerned. Are we getting to a point where Glasner needs to begin to, maybe prioritize or rotate? Because it's been virtually the same lineup in the League Cup games as well, and it's only a matter of time before fatigue sets in. There's already a lot of injury worries for the team, but are we at that point where Glasner needs to start prioritizing one league, the league over, the cup, for example, or the cup over the league, because the cup run would be great for Palace as well, particularly considering it's 2 games against Arsenal coming up?
Yeah, this is a tricky one. I think, a cup run would be amazing. It always is for a team of our stature. And Glasner's always had this line of like, every game we play in, we need to be at our best. We need to give 100%. But last time we did that against Villa, we lost Eze and Wharton to injury. And then we lost Nketiah in the next game with a hamstring injury, which Glasner admitted was because he was pushing him too hard and asking him to press too much in too short of a period. So these games do come with issues, and the fixture pile up around Christmas is particularly nasty for all teams, really. But I do sense tomorrow, like, there could be an opportunity to go at Arsenal. I don't think Arteta's going to field his strongest possible team, especially with players like Saka having played so much this season already. So I think that it's a tough one, because there's a chance to go for it. But then do you sacrifice Saturday? I'm not too sure. We still need points on the board. We're not out of trouble yet. So if it was me, I would prioritise the league, just because that is more essential to our future and what we want to build. And if we want to progress up the table, we need points and we need them quickly to pull away from that relegation battle. But I do think Glasner will continue to put out a full strength side, and he'll go for it tomorrow, regardless of what's coming up at the weekend with another clash against Arsenal. And I think Glasner's kind of got this thing of like, every game we play is a chance to improve and like test the squad and push them a bit. But we do have to be careful with that as well. But I think he'll go for it tomorrow. Whether that has implications for Saturday, we'll find out late on Wednesday evening after the game, if there's any injuries or any setbacks or anything. But yeah, it'll be an interesting one, but I expect him to fully go for it. If we can beat Arsenal at the Emirates, that'll a couple of days after beating Brighton away, that would be a massive boost for the club. So yeah, we'll see.
Well, I'm totally inclined to agree with you. I'm sure it's one of those where Glasner's brain is telling him to maybe apply some caution with his fielding and how he approaches the game, but his heart will be saying to him, we'll just go for it and see what comes out of it. 13 years since Palace made it to the League Cup quarterfinals, and the last time they did, it was a famous victory against United at Old Trafford. So maybe, just maybe, a victory might be on the cards at the Emirates. I remember saying this on Friday about a victory away at Brighton. The last time Palace did beat Brighton, and I just called it, and there was a victory away. So maybe, just maybe, there will be a victory away at the Emirates in that game. But we'll have to wait to see. And just as Alex pointed out, what the fallout of going for it will be, we won't be able to find out until after the game on Wednesday. But I'm sure the guys will get more time to talk about the Carabao Cup game against Arsenal in the next episode of the pod. But this might be as much as we'll be able to take tonight. Alex, thank you really for your thoughts. Always a pleasure talking Palace with you.
Yeah, no worries, Wale. Thanks for having me tonight, mate.
All right. Many thanks to you as well for joining us. Remember, you can share your comments and your thoughts with us at GSPN Palace, and we'll be glad to hear from you. The pod is every day. Remember, continue to subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts, and we'll be glad to always link up with you. That's the package tonight. This, remember, is brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network, GSPN, and official GSPN on social media. That's how you talk to the broader network. Bye for now.